At 12:47 in the morning, my basement floor drain started breathing. That is the only way I can describe it. A wet, heavy gurgle came from the floor near the laundry room, followed by a bubbling sound under the concrete. Then the drain cover lifted half an inch, rattled against the tile, and a dark rush of sewage pushed up into my basement like the house itself was vomiting.
It's starting to reach the washer.
Within minutes, the laundry room was flooded. Not with rainwater, not with a clean plumbing leak, with sewage. It spread under the washer, across the storage boxes, around my late mother's Christmas decorations, and into the finished room where my grandson's toys were still stacked from the weekend. The smell hit so hard, I had to cover my mouth with a towel. My cat, Winston, bolted upstairs and hid under the bed. I stood on the basement steps in bare feet, shaking, watching brown water crawl toward everything I owned. By sunrise, 2 restoration workers in white suits were carrying contaminated drywall out of my house. By noon, my HOA had sent me a violation notice for odor and unsanitary exterior conditions. By dinner, my neighbor, Randall Whitcomb, told 3 people on our street that I had ignored a known sewer problem and was now trying to blame his new renovation. And 2 days later, his attorney sent me a letter demanding $126,000.
It's not my fault the roots are on their side.
He claimed my complaints had delayed the final inspection on his luxury guest house, damaged his reputation with the county, and caused his contractor to lose scheduling deposits. He said, I was making unsupported allegations about his sewer work. He said, if I continued, he would pursue defamation and financial damages. My basement filled with sewage, his illegal pipe caused it. Then he tried to make me pay for slowing down his project. That was when I stopped thinking this was a plumbing disaster and realized it was a land grab under the ground, because Randall's new guest house sat on a narrow side lot behind his main home. For months, I had watched trenching equipment come and go along the fence between our properties, he told everyone. He was installing drainage and landscape lighting. The HOA approved it as a minor utility improvement. His contractor covered the trench before anyone asked questions, but the sewage did not lie, and neither did the plumber's camera. 3 weeks later, a county utility inspector would lower a camera into the cleanout near my side yard and show the entire neighborhood why my basement had flooded. The video would reveal a fresh illegal sewer tie-in running from Randall's guest house across the property line into an old private lateral on my lot, without an easement, without a permit, and without my consent. Randall would lose his guest house occupancy permit. His contractor would be referred to the licensing board. The HOA would withdraw my violation in a public meeting, and the man who called me confused and emotional would end up paying $126,000 in cleanup costs. Pipe replacement, legal fees, insurance recovery, county penalties, and property restoration. But that first night, standing on the stairs with sewage rising in my basement, all I knew was this. Something filthy had entered my home, and the people responsible were already trying to bury the truth before the smell reached the street. I bought my house in Maple Run because it was manageable. That may not sound romantic, but after my divorce, manageable felt like a blessing. It was a small Cape Cod on a quiet street outside Columbus, with white siding, a narrow driveway, a half-finished basement, and a backyard just big enough for raised garden beds and a bird bath. The kitchen was old, the closets were too small, and the basement smelled faintly damp every spring. But it was mine. I had spent most of my adult life compromising over money, over family, over where to live, over what could wait, when I signed the closing papers on that house. I promised myself that for the first time in years, the space around me would be honest. Small but honest. My mother helped me move in. She was 74 then, stubborn, funny, and convinced every house needed labeled boxes and extra flashlight batteries. She helped me paint the basement walls a soft gray and insisted we put plastic bins on metal shelves, because old houses always had moisture somewhere. She passed away 3 years later, and that basement became the place where I kept what was left of her holidays, her photo albums, and the ceramic nativity set she had wrapped in newspaper every December since I was a child. So when people later asked why I was so upset about a basement, they did not understand. It was not just drywall, it was not just flooring, it was the room where my mother's handwriting was still on cardboard boxes. My house had an old sewer lateral that ran from the basement toward the street, then curved near the side yard before connecting to the municipal line. I knew this because during closing, the inspector recommended a sewer scope. The line was old clay pipe but usable. The plumber told me the slope was good, there were no major breaks, and if I was careful about roots. It could last years. I kept that report. I kept everything. Maybe that came from being a claims processor for an auto insurance company. I spent my workdays reading files where the smallest detail could change responsibility. Dates, photos, receipts, maintenance records. It taught me that people do not always tell the truth, but documents often remember what people hope to forget. For 8 years, my house was quiet. Then Randall Whitcomb bought the corner property next door. Randall did not move into the neighborhood he arrived. The first week, a black SUV sat in his driveway while designers walked around with tablets. The second week, the old hedges came out. The third week, survey flags appeared. Within 2 months, Randall had replaced the windows, repaved the driveway, and installed uplighting that made his house glow at night like a boutique hotel. He was polite in the way. Wealthy people are polite when they are measuring you. He called the neighborhood charming. He called the older homes underutilized. He told the HOA that Maple Run needed investment energy. The board loved him immediately because he spoke their favorite language, property values. Then he announced the guest house. Officially, it was an accessory dwelling unit for visiting family. Unofficially, everyone knew it was part pool house, part office, part luxury rental suite. He hoped the county would pretend not to notice. It had a kitchenette, full bath, laundry closet, heated floors, and a private entrance off the alley. The problem was utilities. Randall's lot was wide in front, but awkward in back. The old utility path to the street was crowded by his driveway. Garage slab and a retaining wall he had installed without much room left for new sewer work. My side yard, by contrast, had an old utility corridor near the fence where my lateral curved toward the street. I did not think that mattered at first. Then trenching started. A small excavator appeared behind Randall's house. Workers dug along the fence. White PVC pipes sat stacked near my property line. I asked one worker what they were installing. He said drainage. I asked Randall. He smiled and said it was landscape utilities and nothing that affected me. The HOA approved the project quickly. Their notice described it as landscape drainage and accessory utility work within owner property. There was no mention of sewer, no mention of my lot, no mention of an easement. No notice to adjacent homeowners. I emailed the HOA manager and asked whether any underground work crossed the property line. She replied that all permitted work remained on Randall's property. That sentence would matter later, because the ground remembered a different answer. The first warning was the smell. It came and went for about a week, a sour, sewer-like odor near the basement laundry room. Strongest after Randall's contractors had been working behind the fence. I thought it was my old floor drain drying out, so I poured water into the trap and opened the windows. The smell faded. Then it came back worse. On Friday afternoon, I heard a loud grinding sound outside through the kitchen window. I saw Randall's plumber standing near the fence with a pipe locator and a spray-painted line running dangerously close to my side yard. A trench plate covered part of the ground on his side. When he saw me looking, he turned away. I emailed Randall and asked whether any plumbing work had been done near my property. He replied, 20 minutes later, nothing involving your property. Please direct concerns to the HOA. That was his style. Formal, short, designed to close a door. That night, the basement drain gurgled twice. I should have called a plumber then. Instead, I put towels around the drain and told myself I was being nervous because of the construction. At 12:47 a.m., the drain erupted. The sound was wet and violent, not like water draining backwards slowly, but like pressure had built somewhere under the house and finally found the weakest opening. Sewage spread faster than I thought possible. It moved under the laundry machines, into the storage area, along the baseboards, and across the finished half of the basement. I grabbed my phone and filmed everything: the bubbling drain, the spreading water, the timestamp on the stove clock upstairs. The smell was so bad my eyes watered. I called an emergency plumber first, then my insurance company, then a cleanup company. The plumber arrived before 2 a.m. His name was Victor. He opened the clean-out near the side yard and immediately frowned. He said there was pressure in the line that did not match a simple blockage. He ran a cable but hit something strange near the side yard bend. Then he brought out a small inspection camera. The camera showed sludge, root staining, old clay pipe, and then something that made Victor stop talking. A new white PVC connection entering the side of my old lateral at an angle. Fresh, clean, wrong. Victor pulled the camera back, checked the distance counter, and asked whether anyone had recently done sewer work next door. I told him about Randall's trench. Victor looked toward the fence and said I needed to call the county utility department before anyone covered anything else. By morning, the cleanup crew had marked half the basement as contaminated. My washer and dryer had to be removed. Baseboards came off, drywall was cut, boxes were carried upstairs in plastic bags. Some of my mother's ornaments could not be saved. The photo albums had to be sent out for restoration. Then the HOA violation arrived. It said neighbors had reported odor, standing water near the side yard, and unsanitary conditions affecting community standards. It ordered me to remediate the issue within 7 days and provide proof that my sewer line was functional. I stared at the email in disbelief. My basement had flooded overnight. I had already hired emergency cleanup, and they were threatening me with fines because the smell of sewage had escaped from a disaster someone else may have caused. Randall made it worse. By Sunday, 2 neighbors told me he had mentioned that I had an old sewer line and had probably ignored maintenance too long. Another neighbor said Randall claimed his contractor had seen signs of pre-existing failure on my property. Then his attorney sent the letter, $126,000. Delayed damages, contractor rescheduling guesthouse final inspection postponement, reputation harm, legal expenses, lost rental opportunity. The letter said, I had no evidence of any connection between Randall's project and my sewer failure. It demanded that I stop making defamatory claims to neighbors, the HOA county staff, or contractors. No evidence. I had camera footage inside my own pipe, but Randall did not know that yet. That was his mistake. His second mistake was assuming I would clean everything up before the county saw where the sewage had come from. Instead, I told Victor not to repair the line. I told the cleanup crew not to disturb the side yard. I put Randall's attorney letter in a plastic sleeve. Then I started a timeline. Because if someone wanted to bury a pipe under my property and call it my problem, I was going to make sure every inch of that pipe had a witness. The first real evidence was Victor's camera footage. He gave me a copy before he left. It showed the inside of my sewer lateral with the distance counter in the corner of the screen. At 43 feet from the cleanout, the old clay pipe curved toward the street like it had for decades. At 46 feet, the camera light hit the new PVC connection. It was bright white against the older pipe. The cut into my lateral was rough. The seal around it was uneven. The angle was wrong. Wastewater from the new line was entering with force during use, and Victor explained that if Randall's guesthouse fixtures discharged at the wrong time, pressure could push back through my older system and up through the basement floor drain. Then Victor explained the part that made the whole thing click. The illegal tie-in had created a restriction inside the older clay lateral. My line had never been designed to serve 2 homes. A guesthouse bathroom, a kitchenette, and a laundry closet. Every time Randall's guesthouse discharged water, it added flow and pressure to a pipe that was already older, narrower, and now partially obstructed by a bad connection. In other words, the backup was not random. It was engineered by the shortcut they had buried. That explained the timing. Randall's guesthouse had just begun final plumbing tests. My basement flooded the same night. I saved Victor's video in 3 places. Then I pulled out my closing documents. The original sewer scope from when I bought the house showed no such connection. The old plumber had recorded the entire lateral, no PVC branch, no tie-in, no shared line, nothing. That was the second piece of evidence. Before Randall's project, the connection did not exist. After Randall's project, it did. I called the county utility department as soon as they opened Monday morning, when I explained that a neighbor may have tied into my private lateral without an easement. The woman transferred me twice. The third person, a utility inspector named Marlon Hayes, asked whether I had camera footage. I said yes. His voice changed. He told me not to allow any excavation, repair, or cleaning of the connection point until the county could inspect it. He also asked me to submit a public records request for sewer permits issued to Randall's address, the guesthouse project, and any lateral connection approvals. Then I checked the county permit portal myself. Randall's guesthouse had permits for electrical, plumbing, WAC, and building. But the plumbing permit listed a new connection to the municipal main from Randall's property frontage. It did not mention my lateral. It did not mention a shared connection. It did not mention a private sewer easement. The site plan showed the sewer line going forward. Victor's camera showed it going sideways. I took screenshots of every permit page. Then I checked my backyard camera. It did not see underground. But it saw enough for 3 days during the trenching. Randall's contractor had worked near the fence line. One clip showed workers carrying white PVC pipe toward the side yard. Another showed a trench box positioned at the back corner closest to my lateral. Another showed a worker stepping over the property line briefly to move a tool bag, then pulling it back when someone shouted. The most important clip was from Friday evening. It showed Randall standing with the plumber near the fence, pointing toward my side yard while the pipe locator sat on the ground between them. I could not hear what they said, but I could see where they pointed. My insurance adjuster arrived that afternoon. She documented contaminated flooring, drywall removal, storage loss, appliance damage, odor treatment, photo restoration, and potential sewer backup coverage. When I showed her Victor's camera footage and the old sewer scope, she used the same word I had heard before in my work. Subrogation. If my insurer paid for cleanup and another party caused the backup, they could pursue recovery. Now Randall would not just be arguing with me. He would be arguing with an insurance company that had handled more sewer claims than he had renovation excuses. I hired an attorney named Naomi Price. She specialized in property disputes and construction damage. I sent her everything: the HOA violation, Randall's emails, his attorney-s demand, Victor-s footage, the old sewer scope, the permit screenshots, backyard camera clips, cleanup invoices, and my insurance adjuster's notes. Naomi asked one question immediately. Did Randall have a recorded easement to use your sewer lateral? I knew the answer before I checked no. My deed had a standard utility easement near the front, but nothing giving a neighbor the right to run wastewater through my private pipe. The subdivision plat showed separate utility connections. The county utility map showed my lateral serving my house only. Naomi sent preservation letters that night. They went to Randall, his attorney, his plumbing contractor, the general contractor, the HOA, and the county utility department. She demanded all permits, work orders, invoices, text messages, inspection requests, site photos, plumbing diagrams, contractor notes, and communications about sewer routing. By the next morning, Randall's guesthouse final inspection had been postponed. By the afternoon, the plumber who installed the line stopped answering calls. And by the end of the week, the county inspector was standing in my side yard with his own camera. That was when the buried lie started coming back to the surface. County Inspector Marlon Hayes did not talk much when he arrived. He set up his camera at my cleanout, checked Victor's footage, confirmed the distance counter, and ran his own inspection through the lateral. I watched the monitor from a few feet away. My arms folded so tightly they hurt. Old clay pipe, minor root staining, normal slope. Then the white PVC appeared. Marlon paused the camera and zoomed in. The connection was not a county-approved saddle. It was not a permitted Y. It was not properly sealed or supported. It entered my private lateral from the direction of Randall's property, and the flow marks showed recent use. Marlon took still images. Then he asked for Randall's plumbing permit. I gave him the printout. He read the site plan, looked at the footage, then looked toward Randall's guest house. The permit did not match the pipe. That was the first turn. The second came from the utility map. Marlon pulled up the county GIS utility layer on his tablet. My house had a private lateral running to the main in front. Randall's main house had its own connection. The new guest house permit required a separate approved route to the municipal system from Randall's lot. There was no approved connection through my property. No shared lateral agreement, no maintenance covenant, no sewer easement, nothing. Randall's guest house was using my sewer line like he had rented space under my yard without asking, without recording, without paying, without permission. Marlon issued a correction notice immediately. Randall's final occupancy inspection was frozen pending investigation. The guest house plumbing approval was placed under review. The county required exposure of the connection point under inspection, disconnection from my lateral, and submission of a corrected sewer plan. Randall's attorney withdrew the $126,000 demand 2 days later, not with an apology, with a sentence saying the claim was being held in abeyance pending further factual development. That meant they knew, but the strongest evidence arrived from the plumbing contractor's own file. In response to Naomi's preservation letter, the contractor produced a work order and a string of emails. One email from the plumber to Randall's general contractor said the approved route to the municipal main would require cutting part of Randall's new driveway and delaying concrete work. It would cost more and push final inspection. The general contractor replied, "Owner wants cheaper route. Neighbor lateral appears accessible near fence. Proceed if connection can be concealed before inspection." Concealed, that word sat on the page like a confession. Then came Randall's reply, forwarded later in the same chain, Do it clean. I do not want the neighbor involved unless absolutely necessary. The neighbor, me. The person whose basement would later fill with sewage because Randall did not want to cut his new driveway. Naomi's demand letter became much larger after that. It accused Randall and his contractors of trespass, unauthorized utility connection, damage to private sewer infrastructure, nuisance, negligence, permit misrepresentation, wrongful demand, and attempted concealment. It demanded immediate disconnection, professional repair of my lateral, full sewer replacement if required, reimbursement for cleanup, restoration of contaminated property, appliance replacement, legal fees, insurance recovery, HOA correction, and county penalty compliance. It also demanded written notice to the HOA that the unsanitary condition was caused by an illegal sewer connection from Randall's project, not by my maintenance failure. Randall tried to shift blame. He said the plumber misunderstood. The plumber said the general contractor approved the connection. The general contractor said Randall wanted the cheaper route. The HOA said it had relied on permitted plans. Everyone suddenly became confused at the exact moment the camera made the pipe impossible to deny, but sewer lines are not rumors. They go where they go, and this one went from Randall's guest house into my yard. The county required the connection to be exposed under supervision. That meant digging, not on Randall's schedule. Not by his contractor alone, under county inspection, with my attorney, my plumber, Randall's contractor, the utility inspector, and a representative from the health department present. The excavation happened on a cold Wednesday morning. The crew removed the soil near the fence carefully, one layer at a time. At first, all we saw was wet clay and old roots, then the white PVC appeared, sloping under the fence line from Randall's guest house toward my side yard. A few feet later, it entered my old clay lateral through a crude cut wrapped in black sealant. Nobody spoke for several seconds. There it was, the lie, uncovered. Marlin photographed everything. The health department representative documented sewage exposure and contamination risk. My plumber confirmed the connection had compromised the integrity of my private lateral. The county ordered immediate disconnection and temporary sanitary measures to prevent further discharge. Randall stood on his side of the fence wearing a wool coat and leather gloves, looking like a man watching money drain into a hole he had paid someone else to dig. His attorney did most of the talking. It did not help. By the end of that inspection, the county issued violations against Randall and his plumbing contractor. The guest house occupancy permit remained blocked. The contractor was referred to the state licensing board for unpermitted sewer work and misrepresentation of permitted routing. Randall had to submit a new sewer plan using an approved legal connection, which meant tearing up part of his newly finished driveway after all. That was the part he had tried so hard to avoid. And now it would cost more than doing it right the first time. My insurance company also moved quickly. After reviewing the county findings, the exposed connection photos, Victor's camera footage, and the contractor emails, they pursued recovery for emergency cleanup, remediation, personal property loss, appliance replacement, and additional living expenses during the contamination work. The basement restoration expanded because sewage is not ordinary water. Drywall had to be cut higher. Flooring had to be removed completely. The laundry machines were declared contaminated. Wet ducts near the basement had to be cleaned and tested. My mother's damaged photo albums went to a specialty restoration company. Sumpses could not be saved. That hurt more than I expected. You can replace drywall. You cannot replace handwriting on Christmas labels. Then came the HOA meeting. I almost skipped it. I was tired of explaining sewage to people who had believed Randall over me. But Naomi told me that Randall had made the story public when it helped him, and the correction needed to be public too. The clubhouse was packed. Everyone had smelled the trucks. Everyone had seen the excavation. Everyone had heard some version of Randall's claim that my old sewer line failed, but now the county violations were circulating through the neighborhood. And people wanted answers. The HOA president tried to keep the meeting focused on landscaping budgets. That failed immediately. A homeowner asked why I had been cited for unsanitary conditions when the county had found an illegal sewer tie-in from Randall's project. Another asked whether the HOA had verified the utility work before approving it as landscape drainage. Someone else asked whether any contractor could dig near a property line and call it minor utility improvement without notifying the neighbor. Randall sat in the second row, for once. He was not smiling. Naomi stood and presented the timeline. Randall S. Guesthouse Permit, the HOA approval description, the trenching near the fence, my first odor complaint, the sewer backup. Victor's camera footage, the county utility map, the exposed illegal connection, the contractor email saying to conceal the cheaper route. The room changed when she read the word concealed. People who had been curious became angry. One older man asked whether Randall's guesthouse waste had been running through my sewer line before the backup. Marlin, who attended as a county representative, said the connection showed recent active use and had not been approved. That was enough. The HOA withdrew my violation that night. They issued a written correction, stating that the odor and contamination originated from an unauthorized sewer connection associated with Randall S. project. They also changed their architectural review rule. Any underground utility work within 15 feet of a property line required a permit copy, utility routing diagram, and written notice to affected neighbors. Randall left before the meeting ended. He did not get far. 2 neighbors stopped him near the door and asked whether his guesthouse bathroom had been flushing into my line. He did not answer. Sometimes silence is not dignity. Sometimes it is the sound of a person running out of lies. The final settlement took months. The county required Randall to pay penalties, disconnect and abandon the illegal tie-in, repair my lateral under inspection, restore the side yard, and install a proper sewer connection at his own expense. My insurer recovered its payments through subrogation. Randall and his contractors eventually agreed to cover my deductible. Uncovered losses, plumbing replacement, basement restoration, damaged personal property, specialty photo recovery, temporary lodging, legal fees, and the portion of cleanup not covered by insurance. The documented resolution reached $126,000. That number did not include Randall's own driveway demolition, new sewer installation, delayed guesthouse occupancy, contractor licensing problems, or lost rental income. It only covered the damage his illegal shortcut caused to my home and property. The guesthouse sat empty for months every time I saw the dark windows from my kitchen. I remembered his attorney letter accusing me of delay damages. He had been right about one thing. His project was delayed, just not by my complaint, by the pipe he had no right to bury. My basement did not feel clean for a long time, even after the restoration crew finished, even after the new drywall went up, even after the concrete was sealed and the laundry machines were replaced. I still smelled sewage in my mind every time I opened the basement door. Trauma can attach itself to a room, so can anger. For weeks, I avoided going downstairs unless I had to. Then one afternoon, my grandson asked if we could set up his train tracks again. I almost said no. Then I looked at the empty floor, the new baseboards, the fresh paint, and the plastic bins where my mother's surviving decorations had been carefully relabeled. I said yes. We built the track across the floor. That was the first time the basement felt like part of my house again, instead of a place where someone else's greed had surfaced. Randall S. Guesthouse eventually passed inspection, but not the way he wanted. The driveway had a long rectangular patch where the legal sewer route had been installed. The county required additional cleanouts, inspection records, and a recorded statement confirming the guesthouse had no right to use any neighboring private lateral. The plumbing contractor's license investigation stayed open for months. The general contractor stopped advertising Randall's project in his portfolio. The HOA changed too, though. Not because they wanted to, they had to. After the meeting, several homeowners demanded copies of their own utility records. People started asking where their sewer laterals ran, whether drainage work had been properly permitted, and why the board had accepted vague descriptions like minor utility improvement without requiring proof. The HOA attorney recommended a new underground work policy, and for once the board listened. The HOA manager sent a formal correction. Randall's attorney sent careful settlement language. The contractor blamed field conditions. The plumber blamed instructions. Everyone used words designed to avoid the one sentence that mattered. We were wrong, but the payments cleared. The pipe was removed. The lateral was repaired. The violation disappeared, and my basement slowly became mine again. I kept 3 things in a folder in my desk: the original sewer scope from when I bought the house, Victor S. camera still showing the illegal white PVC connection, and the contractor email with the word concealed highlighted in yellow. I kept them because they reminded me that not every trespass happens over a fence. Some trespasses happen underground, hidden beneath grass and soil, wrapped in black sealant, waiting to become your disaster when someone else flushes the wrong line at the wrong time. Randall thought. If the pipe was buried, the truth was buried with it. He was wrong. A buried pipe still has a direction, a camera can still follow it, a permit can still contradict it. And a lie, once pressure builds behind it, eventually backs up into the open. So if a neighbor, contractor, HOA, or developer ever tells you underground work near your property is none of your concern, do not accept that because they sound confident. Ask for the permit, ask for the route, ask for the easement, save the emails, photograph the trench, keep your old inspection reports. And if something smells wrong, trust that instinct before they convince you the problem started inside your own walls. If this story made you think of someone who needs to hear it, share it with them. Leave your thoughts in the comments, save the video, and subscribe for more stories about ordinary homeowners who learn that property rights do not stop at the surface. Because I did not beat Randall by yelling over the fence. I beat him by sending a camera into the pipe, and once the truth came back on video, there was nowhere left for his lie to drain.